67. Be moral. Laws of Allah are sufficient for all situations. Laws are framed for maintain a harmony in human society. Customs and traditions differ from a country to country. So when law is framed it should be suitable for all. This is called justice. A justice done is better than remembering God throughout the life. Both judiciary without justice and in disparity regarding the basic right of the public are painful to the people. To establish justice one should be deviate, trustworthy and honest. Justice means to maintain equity in people's practical life. The policy of self-realization solves the doubts and confusions about ethics. Firm belief in afterlife improves the moral character of mankind. Punishment for a crime and honor for a good deed creates fear toward crime and attraction towards good acts. The more the self-centeredness will decrease, the more the moral principles will improve. Social sins are to be recovered by social treatment. New regulations should take guidance from the old ones and the old good regulations should be maintained. Which is the main rhythm of a chorus. Nothing is holy or unholy. Everything is how we take it. A man without a moral principle cannot survive. Principles or manners are not permanent as always seen. It is variable to time and place. Definition of good or bad varies from time to time and place to place in such a degree that sometimes it becomes controversial to each other. There is nothing which is treated as bad or a sin in all the times and situations. There is nothing like good or bad. Sense of evaluation is the main thing. Our thoughts make something good or bad. It is the habit by which something is good or bad to us. Good or bad are complementary to each other. There is no such act in the world which is absolutely good or bad. The idea of good or bad is created to live a comfortable life in the world. Shine and relative evil or bad if anything depends on one's mentality, which has no real existence. No standing rule is applicable for customs and traditions. Traditions of observing customs come from fear from something or from desires for something. Peoples of all the corners of the world have created social regulations, duties, restrictions, principles etc. on the basis of religious beliefs. The general human qualities like honesty, politeness, cooperation, affection of a mother for her children, understanding between sexual pertness, helping neighbors in their distress, sacrificing attitude etc. are important, which have been acquired by mankind for thousands of years by their experience for their survival since before the stage prior to biological evolution, that is after the stage when mankind has been developed from the stage of beast. Laws and regulations are to be introduced suiting the necessity of a particular period. In all matters some exceptions occur due to some relevant reasons. Orders and instructions are given on the basis of observations and from logical point of view. Policies are made according to the requirement. So a rule is there in which welfare and logic are there. The heart of a man who avoids the restricted thing and accepts the permissible things always remain bright and sacred. Good or bad, justice or injustice, everything is determined on the basis of interests of mankind. Moral principles are framed on the basis of the requirements of mankind. Law is not required for those who are really conscious and wise. Law is required for establishing justice, suppression of injustice, that is equity. There is nothing like universal and natural rule. Morality is based on feelings. Man approves helping other and justice because these have higher impacts compared to selfishness. Morality is created by the weaker people. Morality is to evaluate other according to one's own evaluation. Moral wills and rules are controlled by oneself. Good behavior and morality are related to one's conscience. There is nothing like a universal and unchangeable moral principle. The conduct which is suitable for establishing peace for the majority number of people can be called an ideal moral conduct. A man can reach his ultimate moral goal by a proper exercise and practice of an ideal personality and moral conduct. Moral, social and state rules are subject to a dynamic change like a personal character. Ethics is merely a matter of opinions or taste. Any controversial policy matter may be solved by an obligatory process. Like the way a person develops himself by his independent wish and will, he make his sense of evaluation. Peace is a scarce thing without a coordination moral and financial practice. Exercise and practice of knowledge is the source of moral quality. Morality grows on the basis of necessity, wish and ideology. Habit guided by knowledge is morality. Where there is no independent will there is no question of morality. The independent well coordinated with the nature and wise actions of mankind is the real independent actions. Justice and application and exercise of law is meant for serving some particular purpose that change with the change of place and time. A complete policy can be made by analyzing experience. One is to amend himself before amending others. There is no period in the history of mankind which is fully void of morality. Necessity is all above law. When everybody is learned to injustice, they lean to justice in fact. Irregularities are normal affairs where there are no rule. Those who don't believe in any principle but believe in their self-interests only can prosper but fall down with an irresistible speed. Principles or character is the key force of the social organization. After doing something, if it is considered to be right, then it is moral act, and if considered to be wrong, then it is immoral act. Moral principles are made for man are not made for them. Obedience to justice acts as a great power in the different fields of life. What should be done is right, and being unable to do it or to avoid it is wrong. We should not neglect any good teaching of any religion. Teaching on good principles is a part of religious education. Human factors are placed above all in religion. In this way a man gets sympathy and honor from others permanently. Human qualities and moral teachings are to be treated through scientific process. There is an intention to solve some problem behind creation of every custom. Whichever flourishes a man properly refreshes his mentality and willpower as a moral act. Both good and bad are always infectious. Knowledge is unlimited but time is limited. It is spiritualism which has created regulation. Regulation are to be followed till one's life is not fully firm. Rule of an age is null and void in some other age. New customs are introduced to suit a new age. Education, behavior and customs vary with the variation of nations, persons and nature. Those who are courageous and strong-hearted always follow moral principles. Social customs are made after many social conflicts. The same law does not apply to all regarding any matter. It is applicable regarding religious also. Principle is a relative term. When a person controls his behavior according to moral principles and ideologies, he enjoys personal autonomy, which is a symptom of self-consciousness and moral progress. Don't promise at random. Don't swear falsely. Keep your opinions limited to yes or no. Don't try to do what is not possible for you, but when you promise to do something, try to keep it carefully. He who breaks his promise goes to ashtray. He who promises more but keeps less is an optimistic fool. He who promises too much is a worthless. A promise grows in storm and is forgotten in power. He remains calm and quiet when he passes an easy time and promises when in trouble. So gets no result and faces a violent future. A salmon remains all right as usual but dies as soon as it is caught. A promise is also like that, it loses its sanctity when it is fastened. The easiest way to keep a promise is to break it. We promise on the basis of our expectation and keep it shaken. A promise goes back upward to him who has given it. Don't give such promise which you cannot keep. He who can keep his promise keeps his word as an ideal man. Everybody promise in the same way but they differ in keeping it. Family, social and governmental regulations more or less control a man's personal mentality. When a man could not love others, become a criminal. An individual gets the opportunity to take a decision, where there is a democratic process. There an individual knows about the necessity of regulations. As a result he attains self-confidence and gets the opportunity of self-ruling. Stability in family, a loving atmosphere, opportunities for education, games and sports, creative activities, working atmosphere, logical administration, financial solvency etc. subside frustration and offensive attitude and create an affirmative attitude. The qualities like self-ruling, personal independence, self-confidence, sense of responsibility, cooperative attitude, sense of self-respect, self-dependence, activeness, competitive attitude, incentiveness and social attitude etc. grow normally in democratic administration, not in a dictatorial administration. A parting of parents, financial problem, poverty, unemployment, dense population, lack of opportunity for education in games and sports etc., are the reasons for crimes. In one sense poverty, joblessness and crime are interrelated. On the other hand employment and development, the crime, isolation, use of drug, immorality are increasing. Behavior problem, drug addiction, crime tendency have been creating erosion and establishing single family in the society. By birth everybody is honest, but since the childhood to adult men become more or less through speaking lie a little bit and dishonest work. Any method contradictory to knowledge or logic is inferior and it is crime to the sense of humanity. The poverty does not create so much crime, more poverty are created by crime. The main objective of good governance is to bring peace, development and worthiness for nationals emphasizing life of human being. Devastation and disordinance happens to the moral practical life of the society, state and national life in order for lacking of social and economic balance. Moral feelings of life is the basis of spiritualism. And the exploration of morality will happen when we able self-reliant economically. But generally this uninterrupted relationship to the human life and livelihoods cannot be realized. As a result, the provision of state become useless. After rescuing from tension of availability of livelihood man can make attention to the principality, ideality and development of other sides. Evaluation of human behavior depends on a particular time and society. What is a crime in a particular age or society is not so in some other age or society. A man's biological inferiority or his socio-cultural system is responsible for his crimes. Crime is the result of a social system where there is no fellow feelings, integrity and cooperation. The main reason for criminal behaviors is defective intelligence. A special reason for criminal tendency is financial insolvency. Crime tendency is hidden in disparity, financial insolvency, misery and lack of moral principles. An uneven economic system and social disparity are the maternity home of crimes. To hurt the fundamental moral emotional feeling and honesty of other is the crime. Society is changing so the definition of crimes is not universal but relative. A man is compelled to commit criminal activities where offensive activities like destruction, war, affection, invasion etc. prevail. One of the main factors for criminal tendency is one's age. From teenage period up to the end of youth is a risky time for a man for a growing criminal tendency of their age is attraction towards daring acts. If a man is having at least 5 of the following physical characteristics he is having criminal tendency in his character. Those are the low and sloppy forehead, long and thin neck, sloppy shoulder, abnormal shaped nose, squeezed face, blue-brown and mixed colored eyes, narrow eyebrow, thin lips and triangular cheek, twisted or small ears etc. Physical abnormality are seen in a man, he will have some mental vileness as well. Tendency of crime is inherited from one generation to another. Being a criminal depends on a person's experience and his companions. Defective and low-standard family, religious and academic educational systems are also the main reasons for growing crime tendency in a man. Education for acquiring a clear concept about the life and the world side by side with book knowledge is essential for a man's personality development. Characteristics of the persons who commit crimes repeatedly are different from others. He does not bother for punishment or for the rules and regulations of the law enforcing authorities. He does not hesitate to take any risk while committing an offense. He does not care for his social prestige. Varieties of human nature make the crimes absurd. Refrain from unjustified acts. Because unjustified and wrong acts seem to be ordinary at the beginning but become fatal at a later stage. Naturally the criminals indulge in conflicts among themselves. As the wild asses bite each other. When a slight bad quality mixes up with a good quality, the good quality becomes a bad one. Peeping is one kind of crime in disguise. A man steals out of want, being envious, or out of greed. Lack of social security makes a man thief. Honesty is considered as a punishable offense where most of the people are thief. Those who are habitual thieves steal from time without any valid reason. They steal for pleasure's sake as a murderer murders out of thirst for blood. Begging is no less a heinous act than stealing. All irregularities are the sources of crimes. Crime is the main problem of any society. To keep young men away from crime is more effective than to suppress it by punishment. It can be prevented by creating the sense of fellow feeling, right and wrong. Crime tendency always wants a solution and punishment as its main regulator. Crime tendency increases day by day in a person if his companions are bad. If a sinner is found happy, it is understood that there is no crime tendency in him at all. A barbarian adopts the way of coercion when defeated by logic. Regular practice of crimes become the nature of a man at a stage. Mixing with mean fellows develops crime tendency. The society which encourages and gives shelter to the criminals is unsuitable for human living. Try to understand the environment of a man before taking a man's crime as a big one. Somebody commits a crime unknowingly. Somebody again commits a crime being the victim of the situations. These crimes should be forgiven. But those who are habitual and professional criminals and don't repent after committing a crime should not be forgiven. Tendency for crime remains hidden in a criminal. He audiences himself as a criminal who knows that he is going to be punished. The first punishment of a criminal is his feeling that he is a criminal. A criminal does not get rid of this so easily. Not punishment but committing a crime is a matter of shame. The sources of security of the civilized nations are their constitutions and law, which are a number of rules or customs which regulate individuals' duties and responsibilities. The centralization of powers and authority of government department, clear specifications of those power and authorities and strict regulation for accountability of those powers and authorities are to be introduced for ensuring social welfare, security and progress and justice for all. Administration is influenced by social and psychological factors. Characteristics of a welfare state is expansion of public welfare by equitable distribution of wealth and skill. The judiciary system is governed by conventional law and custom. The application of social justice policy is needed. Law and contract should be governed by moral duty to the community and faith. And where the law is not divided, no respect exists there for the law. General people are pushed to the prison in order for minor offense, and they have been facing sufferings. On the other hand, the powerful criminals have been rescuing from the same. The punishment is reserved for lower class, because influential keeps their way barrierless. The laws harassing poor, eviction of slum, eviction of indigenous people and interestlessness have been going on for the minority. The opportunistic are engaged with crime and the disadvantaged are getting punishment for crime. Misrulings set fire in the society and spend the time to relieve the fire. At the same time, the misruling attacks like mad ox to the person who makes barrier their way. The forgiveness of punishment is encouraging the crime. In long fake judiciary, criminal gets enough time to destroy its evidences. The investigation organization, witness, judge, lawyer and executive tool, even justices are purchasable. Statement is taken from brutal repression through innocent person. Situation which exists after snatching the real justice that may be called a jungle of robbers. Whether the faith is not discovered to the judiciary system, then the tendency of crime remain as alternative of law. Crime tendency of politics and administration, politicize of law and justice, fear of sufferers, harassment, non-friendly and human environment and method, hamper respect to the justice. But the court is temple of justice. The most important duty of a government is to conduct the economic and administrative matters. A neutral judge can only make a justice. A wise administrator conducts his administration according to the need of the time. A man with a weak personality does not dare to make justice. Justice delayed, justice denied. Make judgment in accordance with religions and honesty. Justice reveal when intention of mind is judged properly. Everybody likes a justified act and justice. Pay respect to the governor and remain in favor of justice. Judgment should be carried out after hearing both the plaintiff and the accused and finding out the facts. Everybody is happy in the kingdom of a pious king. Everybody there leads to the path of virtue. A judge should have 4 characteristics. Those are listening patiently, replying wisely, considering rightly, and make judgment without partiality. Investigate if you want to be a judge and give orders if you want to be an administrator. Citizens become religious, solvent and active if laws used considerably. A man can win a judgment by proper presentation of his pleas, honestly reasoning and true oath. Active punishment is the symbol of governmental power. Punishment is a process for suppression and prevention of crimes, a corrective measure for a criminal and preventing him from committing further crime. It is hard to rule the wise people. Discipline is maintained by administration and fear. Everybody refrains from committing an offense out of fear from punishment. Governance combination of alliance, discord, vehicle, posture, duality and association. Rulers should have the qualities like spending money judiciously, maintaining a good foreign and public relations. He should have a good personality, he should be sweet-spoken, liberal, and should express himself clearly. There are 4 pillars of administration. Those are religiousness, justice, counseling and asset. Religion, behaviors, character and administration are the 4 factors of ruling. There is no difference between a man who repents after committing an offense and one who has never committed an offense. Justification by oneself after doing an act and the mental suffering after doing a wrong act is repentance. When a man commits a wrong, he starts suffering mentally like an ulcer in his body. Self-criticism recovers a man's all mental sufferings but creates repentance in his mind. As it is a mental object, it is a great burden for oneself. Although Allah forgives our sins, yet we shall remain obliged to our conscience for it. Make judgment by knowing a person, not by seeing. Make judgment keeping wisdom and honesty in view. Where there is justice, there is liberty. While assessing ourselves, we keep in view what we can do in future. When other thinks or assesses us, they only assess as keeping our past activities in view. Where there is no justice, there is no solution of any problem. While judging other, place yourself in his position. Before administering other, one should be experienced on the subject matter. One should be conscious before administering other. Nobody has the authority to find out others' faults and to punish them. Crime is destructive for a man, no doubt, but a jail is more than that. It is better to forgive 10 offenders than to punish a single innocent man. The measuring stick of truth and false in family and that in a court is quite separate. The main aspect of man is humanity, and the main aspect of a court is evidence. Every murderer is not hanged to death, but he who is caught while murdering is only given such punishment. The tactics of the suit-mongers is to use the laws in their favor. The tactics of the lawyers is to fight a law with another law. Where there is fight of laws, a lawyer cannot fight with the help of any other logic. Sometimes a lawyer is to avoid a good reasoning if it is not liked by the judge. Sometimes he is to surrender verbally to the judge, because a judge is not a book of laws but an alive man. Don't hide any fact to your physician or lawyer. He can give the judgment who is having the authority to do so. Law is more valuable to the weaker people than the stronger ones. Law is like a rat-killing trap. It is very easy to take shelter of it, but it is not so easy to get rid of it. Law oppresses the poor people, because law is guided by the rich people. Law is nothing but a joke. Only the rich people can enjoy this joke by spending money. Naturally, law is a protection for the stronger people. To take shelter of law means to lose a cow for a cat. People go to the lawyers to convert a truth into false and a false into truth. A villager in between 2 lawyers can be compared with a fish in between 2 cats. He who does not commit an offense does not understand the necessity of law. Where there are more irregularities, there are more laws. The written laws are like a spider net. Poor and weak people can be caught by it, but the rich and strong people can very easily tear it off and go out. Will of the people is the greatest law. The task which has been finally completed according to legal procedure, it is to be understood that it was planned according to the legal process from the very beginning. You want to find an ounce of love in 1,000 pounds of laws. Justice is only a single kind, but injustice have many appearances. As such, it is easier to make injustice than to make a justice. Legal system is changed due to deviation of law by some laws, change in amendments of laws, and change of status of the person subject to some laws. Law is framed for maintaining discipline within the whole society. Otherwise it will be without any principle. It is hard to enforce law against the persons who are members of law-enforcing authority. The more arms and ammunition will increase, the more chaos will be created. The more laws will be publicized, the more crimes will increase. The more efficiency will be increased, the more loopholes will be created. Reform of social customs also depend on law. There is no suitable process other than law to keep people under control. A society becomes stronger by law, otherwise strong people would grasp the weaker ones. The main theme of law is politeness and education. Law is a polished structure of an order, and a good law means a good order. It is nature which is the real guide for making laws. Mutual justice is the assurance of law. Real freedom is in following the law which drives away inequity by birth among people. That is the law which protects the rights of rich and poor, high and low, king and subject, and anybody else. In a nutshell, freedom means to abide by laws. In the civilized society, individual freedom is created by law. Law becomes inactive without public support. Law depends on the public opinion and emotion. Similarly, respect towards law is the norm of society. Man shows respect to a constitution only when it goes in favor of the interest of men in the society. The ethical disputes are often about the process, not about the purpose. In the want of moral control, more strict code of conducts get introduced, like the state loyalty at present. Protection of personal independence and equity is the purpose of making a law. Discipline is the first law of the heaven. Correction of social irregularities cannot be done by outward measures, but it is to be activated on the mind of people. To reform social malpractices, we should rather proceed through an indirect way, that is by motivation, than trying to correct it by direct actions. Anybody who kills a man should be killed by somebody else. Don't harm anybody is revenge of harmed. Do what is good on everybody's point of view. Life for life, eye for eye, torture for torture, hand for hand, leg for leg, burning for burning, wound for wound, beating for beating is the true justice. Don't make injustice, and don't take a bribe. Because bribe makes a wise blind and changes the opinion of a pious man. Follow what is fully justified. It is easy to do a dishonest or harmful act, but it is very hard to do an honest and benevolent act. As a rust destroys iron itself, the evil acts of a man lead himself to distress. Injustice is prevented when we start strongly in favor of justice. Fear must have a role in enforcing law. But to obey laws only out of fear is an artificial obedience. Its result is either mutiny or mental inactiveness. It is true that man commits offense, but he does not want to sacrifice the ideal of justice. A law is successful when an offender too is having an unbroken moral confidence. Man loses faith on and regard for law if the rule of law is not established. Man likes the prevailing customs, as all customs are introduced by them. Customs are such unwritten laws which are obeyed by a few. Public opinion is the aggregate of individual attitudes or beliefs held by the adult population. The principal approaches to the study of public opinion may be divided into 4 categories: quantitative measurement of opinion distributions, investigation of the internal relationships among the individual opinions that make up public opinion on an issue, description or analysis of the public role of public opinion, study both of the communication media that disseminate the ideas on which opinions are based and of the uses that propagandists and other manipulators make of these media. For the sake of order, some rules, social systems and policy are to be formulated with certain objectives. If such rules get once established, that turn to be a traditional customs. It is difficult to unite men on the basis of reformative goals. For voluntary association, some practice is needed. It is essential to create field for personal and coordinated enterprise to maintain peace and advancement in the society. Customs are restrained men. Sense of ideology is related to interpersonal relations. Religious faith is necessary for maintaining morality among common people, but reason is sufficient for a wise man. Customs come to us like a cradle and disappear like a grave. The ancient customs obey the power of nature. Law always honored the customs. Situation is changing due to external conflicts. As such, change of customs and laws has become essential to cope up with the new requirements. Honesty runs away when men consider it as unnecessary. Policy of nonviolence is required for communal defense.